Based directly on the two-part OVA, which is pretty much just a flashy advertisement for the manga, Natsuki Crisis Battle is your standard two-player fighting game released for the Super Famicom by Angel in 1995. Pretty typical of the post-Street Fighter II era, it's another game caught in the glut of the fighting game craze. Although, unlike some of its contemporaries, for example Gundam Wing Endless Duel, which outdid its SNES opponents, Natsuki Crisis Battle comes up just shy of a great experience. The problems in this game are reminiscent of ones found in Angel's other titles for the system, the Sailor Moon fighting games. Both share the somewhat clunky and unresponsive controls. Now that's not to say the game is unplayable, as there is some fun to be had here, as well as some depth to the system, but the stiffness certainly puts a damper on it. But once past the sluggish controls, there is a decent fighting system to be found within the game. Akin to most fighters of the time, your Street Fighter button commands are how you pull off each character's special moves. So Natsuki has an energy wave performed by doing a dragon punch input and a sliding kick combo used with the forward down forward command. Other characters like Natsuki's partner in crime Lina and her jealous and overly buff competitor Kandori are grapplers, whereas her sensei and club member Yanagisawa and Hondo are your typical Ken and Ryo surrogates. On top of combos and specials, there are some universal moves unique to this game. Combos like up, forward, and R, or down and R will pull off extra attacks for each character that help vary fights. Not to mention that characters have the ability to counter specials and combos with certain commands. So even when you think you might have the fight in the bag, if your opponent is swift enough, they can quickly take it back. And lastly, characters have their designated supers, which can easily sweep you off your feet if you're not careful. Graphics, while not mind-blowing, certainly do the job, as all characters are recognizable and don their outfits for their respective fights this game attempts to portray. With that in mind, stages also come straight from the pages of the manga/show with different levels like the Karate Club, the outside of the school, and the Dark City streets as brawlable locations. Before I move on, I will admit that the music is adequate, but forgettable. The feel bounces around a lot from groovy dance beats to harder guitar-driven rock, which makes for some decent background music. But as of writing this, I captured footage no more than 12 hours ago and have no recollection of a single song. So that's not to say they're bad, just forgettable. It should come as no surprise that fans of the source material are likely to get more out of this game, as it follows the story of the OVA and manga pretty well. So much so that at the beginning of the story mode, Natsuki doesn't have her energy wave, as she doesn't learn it until episode 2 of the OVA. Anyways, it revolves around Kasumi Natsuki, who is part of her high school's karate club. The characters you face throughout the game are not only members of said club, but also foes who come from other schools to avenge/represent their clubs. If you're a fan of anime like myself, then I highly recommend checking out the two OVAs, both of which are on YouTube, as they're quite entertaining and remind me a bit of Ranma 1/2 mixed with a dash of Dragon Ball Z. If you're an avid fighting game player or a fan of the source material, then I definitely recommend the game, as what is here delivers a good amount of fun in short doses. Of course, that comes at the cost of the iffy controls, which do take a little getting used to, as they're not as fluid as Street Fighter, but responsive enough to warrant a play. In addition, the game not only has a two-player mode, but a story mode for fans, and an interesting Hayaku mode, where you're pitted against a bunch of opponents back-to-back with no health refills to see how long you can last. I wish I could say the game was on the cheaper side, but flaws and all, it still commands a bit more than the game is worth. Whether that's to blame on it being a somewhat rare and late release title, or because of the niche license, who knows. Regardless, I would stick to emulation for this one. But if niche anime titles and fighting games are your thing, Natsuki Crisis Battle should be right up your alley.